What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the show. This week, we are going to go part 2 of our buy low series for the 2024 NFL offseason. Something I know the first video was one of my big review ones. I love buy lows, man. I think that is what the off season is all about, right? You get your talent, but you get it cheaper, and then come September, you really get to succeed because you paid attention during the off season. So buy low number 1 for the day. How about Kirk Cousins, currently KTC QB 25, which for me is just a little low. I'm not saying this dude is going to be a stud necessarily, but I think Kirk Cousins at this range is probably one of the few guys left past QB 20 that has top 10 upside. Let's not forget in 2022, he was QB 6. And in 2023, he was pacing to be QB 7 in points per game until he got injured and missed the rest of the year with that Achilles injury. He has some of the best weapons of any quarterback in the league, right? Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and a QB coach, very friendly coach in McConnell. So what's the deal maybe to go get Cousins this offseason? How about trading Romeo Doubs and a third for Cousins? According to KTC, this is actually an overpay, but I think it is a completely fair deal. And I honestly think they have Cousins valued way, way too low, which is why I even on the deal here went with an overpay just to really show that I think you can get Cousins for a very realistic price right now. I think when it comes to Cousins, I think he has about, a 3-year window left to produce for your team, which is pretty far for dynasty owners, right? A lot of people play in a more win now sense. But even if you are kind of a mid-level team and you're looking for a quarterback, I think 3 years is pretty good. And it's not crazy to project only 3 years down the line. Second, how about Terry McLaurin, currently the wide receiver 37 for KTC. Now, McLaurin, who I am going to deem Mike Evans Jr. or mini Mike Evans, whatever, has basically had 1,000 yards in every year except his rookie year. He's had some pretty poor quarterback play. But I think when it comes to McLaurin, something that I am banking on is Washington adding a QB this year. So I think he's going to have the best quarterback he's had in a very long time throwing him the ball, which I think should lead to more elite numbers for Terry McLaurin. He is 28, but let's keep in mind he did enter the league slightly older than most players, closer to that 24 age. So I think McLaurin has 3 very good years left, and then maybe a couple not so, average over 30 years. But I think 5 years of McLaurin with 3 solid wide receiver 2 years are very likely. He's a very good player. He just hasn't really had the best quarterback play behind him. So for Terry McLaurin here, how about we trade a mid-second in 25 and a mid-third in 23? People love picks. I know that the hot thing right now is to go acquire draft picks, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be trying to acquire draft picks, but keep in mind, right, this game is kind of a market. So if people are trying to acquire draft picks, sometimes you can get pretty good deals by selling your draft picks as long as you are going after assets that you value and you think may also grow in value, right? The whole game with acquiring draft picks is that we know they're going to grow in value as free agency happens, as the NFL draft happens, as we know where these players go, as you get closer to your rookie draft, right? People always say rookie picks are worth the most when you're sitting at the bar with your friends and your buddy really wants that player, which is totally true. But also I think players like Terry McLaurin may also grow in value due to what happens here in the NFL draft, right? So player 3 for the day. How about Chuba Hubbard all the way down at RB 42 on KTC, which is pretty low. I think when it comes to Chuba Hubbard, I think I am happy to take the risk that he becomes the guy for Carolina, right? Canales coming over from Tampa Bay. Look what Rachaad White did last year. Can we get 2/3 of that if Hubbard is the guy? And at the price you're paying right now, he's basically just charging you like a long shot play. You can get this guy not super expensive for an RB. And one thing I've been doing in a couple leagues is if I'm looking for running backs and you aren't as high on this class, which is fairly consensus. Now, I do think some running backs are going to rise up the ranks when the NFL draft happens, right? Corum goes to the Chargers and all of a sudden he might find himself in the back end of the first. Braylon Allen, etc. Some of these guys with capital and landing spot. But if you aren't in love with this class, but you still need running backs to win, you may have to use some of your picks to just go buy some of these running backs. And I think there's some fairly good deals you could get done right now. How about 3-1 for Chuba Hubbard? 3-1 is a very dynasty friendly pick, right? People love 3-1. Ooh, the first part of the third round. And I'm not saying I wouldn't like 3-1, but you are going to probably get more points out of Chuba Hubbard next year if he can become the starter. And I think he has just as high of chance as helping your team win as whatever running back you're taking at 3-1. And that's kind of the argument here I'm saying if you are looking for running backs, but you're not in love with any of the rookies, right? Is use your draft capital to go get these players that you want to target instead of just waiting to see who falls to you in the rookie draft. Now, you can win both ways, but there are some pretty good deals out there if you're trying to get some pieces to help you next year. Or even just for me, I think what I like about Kirk Cousins, I think, is more you're trading for him to use him. You're not really trading for Kirk Cousins because you think you're going to be able to flip him. But I think Terry McLaurin and Chuba Hubbard are players that you could trade for right now. I think Terry McLaurin is going to go up in value as soon as Washington takes that quarterback. I don't even think it's going to take that long. I think 2 months from now, Terry McLaurin is just going to be valued more than he is right now. And same with Chuba Hubbard. If he has a couple good games, we'll see how the offseason plays out. It's a lot tougher with running backs. I include them on this list because we all are having to make these decisions, but it is tough and risky to buy running backs. And I am understanding of that. And I'm not saying go take tons of risks, but sometimes you do need to take a little risk. And the last guy we're going to talk about today, someone lowest guy on the show, but I wanted to include someone who was more in the sleeper category or whatever you want to say. How about Demario Douglas all the way down at wide receiver 60 on KTC? I think Douglas is probably going to settle into a nice wide receiver 2 role on the Patriots. I imagine they add someone in free agency, or they trade for someone, or they draft someone. But similar to Terry McLaurin, I think Douglas is going to get a new quarterback at the helm of that Patriots team, which should help him out because he's basically had impossible QB play from the guys there, Mac Jones, Billy Zappi, right? Or Bailey Zappi. But basically Billy, because he didn't really do much, man. But how about for Douglas? We just do something small. How about Jerome Ford in a 4th, and you get Douglas in a 3rd? I mean, I like Jerome Ford, but Chubb's going to come back. Ford basically got played by Kareem Hunt, or outplayed by Kareem Hunt, who was just off the sideline. This dude wasn't even in the NFL at the time. I think Ford's a fine player, but I think I would rather have someone like Douglas who has a little more upside, and you get the pick swap here, which is something good too. I love doing little pick swaps, especially into the future, because you kind of just slowly stack picks and people don't really realize what you're doing. But then come 2026, you're like, oh, how did Sam's team get like 3/3 and 3/4? And like those things help. And then you can start moving those picks to go do some of these earlier trades, right? If you are acquiring extra picks, doing trades like this and pick swaps to get Douglas instead of Jerome Ford, which is a pretty minimal move on your roster, what happens is next year you get into it and you have that 3rd round pick to go take a chance on Chuba Hubbard, or you have an extra 2nd to go get Terry McLaurin and either play him as your wide receiver 3, or you can flip him for maybe a 1st if he starts going off. And that's kind of the pattern I think that I'm going here, and I think is something that a lot of people could benefit from. So thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of the Buy Low Show, something we all love, right? Buying low on players. How do you get the best deals over your league mates? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment in the comments some players you are looking to buy low, or if you have any questions. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Check out all of my other videos, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.